أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم اللعين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Welcome, my dear brothers and sisters, to our 8th session of reflecting together in the Holy Quran, and inshallah we will begin today's verse with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Today, my dear brothers and sisters, we will be talking about the Shaitan's moves. The reason why we need to explore that is because we are at a battle with the Shaitan. The Shaitan has got a plan, he's got a strategy, and that strategy is very well known. But unfortunately, we haven't explored that strategy. What's really, really interesting, my dear brothers and sisters, and I guess this is the holy month where we get to find out these particular things, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in the Holy Quran, He's given us the Shaitan's strategy. It's spelled out very, very clearly in the Holy Quran. And when you're in a battle, in a war with the other side, you don't really know their strategy. You don't know what the opposition are going to do, how they're going to hurt you, how they're going to make sure that you lose this particular battle. But for us as mu'mineen, the believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and believers that the Shaitan does exist and he is there to make sure that we divert from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has given us this particular strategy. And he said, look, I know we're a battle, but I'm going to tell you all my moves. Okay, try to stop me, right? But unfortunately, we haven't comprehended on that. So inshallah, today we will explore the Shaitan's moves. So it is highlighted in this particular verse, chapter 7, Al-A'raf, verse 17, where before this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us in the Holy Quran the conversation that happened between the Shaitan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he said, because of your arrogance, I'm going to punish you. And the Shaitan said, well, let me live in the life, in the world, right? So I can take as many as I can with me to hellfire. And so therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, go and do that. And so he gave him that particular permission so that he can make sure that he takes people into the opposite path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then he said, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure they don't go in the right path. That is the verse 16, so verse before this particular verse. Then he said, how am I going to do this? Right? He's revealed the strategy. He said, ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ. So he said, I'm going to come from the front, and I'm going to go from the back, and I'm going to come from the right, and I'm going to come from the left, right? And my aim is what? My aim is to stop them becoming grateful to you, God. I'm going to make sure that they do not become grateful to you, right? It's a lesson for us that we really need to be one of those shakirin, these people who are always show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's explore these particular moves of the Shaitan a bit more, inshallah. So this is the strategy, my dear brothers and sisters. The first one says, ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ. And مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ is like these, the two hands, right? We've got ayadi. right? These yed and yed, these make aydihim, right? And so this is the front, isn't it? This is the front where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying he, the shaitan is going to come from the front. The shaitan is that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come right from the front. And what does that mean? He says he's going to attack from the front, which is the most straightforward way. And the narrations say that, he will make the hereafter quite insignificant for us. When we want to commit a sin, right? It's a deterrent, isn't it? That we think of hellfire and things like that, but he'll make it very insignificant. So I will go and do that particular sin that I'm going to do, or even it doesn't really need to be a sin. It's just wasting time or procrastinating or whatever. That I don't really find it significant that I've got to work really hard, right, to give myself lots of hasanat, to give myself lots of reward so that I can enter Jannah. But no, I'm not going to do that. What about helping in the community? People are in need where you say, look, help out in the community. We really need you. And your reward is Jannah, inshallah. But the shaitan will say, oh, no, you're too busy. Come on, let's watch this Netflix stuff. Come on, let's go out with friends. Let's do all these things, not helping the community, for example. And then you think it makes hereafter insignificant. Oh, who said there is going to be a hereafter? Oh, it's going to be a long time until you die. Who said there is, in fact, any death, right? Death that after which you will enter hellfire and then you will be punished or rewarded. Who said that's going to be the case? Or you might forget death. Wants you to forget the concept, the phenomena of death, and says, oh, that's going to be a long time. You're still young. There's, death is not going to come to you. All of these particular thoughts that come into your head are from, of course, the shaitan. So he'll come right from the front. That's min bayni aydihim. And then وَمِن خَلْفِهِمْ. And then he comes from the khalf. Khalf is from the back. Is while we are not noticing, right? We are not cognizant. We're not noticing. He comes from the back. And what the narrations say is that he will make us, the shaitan will make us accumulate wealth, right? And will make us fear that if we don't continuously work hard for this dunya, for this world, we might become poor. And if we become poor, then we can't give money to our children. So therefore, I've got to work harder, and I've got to work harder, and I've got to work harder. And this is really interesting, my dear brothers and sisters, don't you think? Because sometimes, we don't have a stop in terms of our work for this dunya. Look, what we're saying here is we're not saying you shouldn't work, right? Of course you should work. Of course you've got a responsibility for your family if you are the husband here, and you've got responsibility for your family. If you're the wife, you might be also working. And if you're not married, maybe in the future you might also work. But what's important is we're not saying don't work, but don't work too much so that you reach a stage, right, where you continuously want money. There are individuals who are very wealthy in the community, but they hardly give anything to the poor, right? Because the money that they have is so precious for them. It's extremely precious that they can't even give a few pounds to the poor or to help the community grow. There are so many projects that we need, mental health projects, for example, or building community centers for the youth, etc., right? But they won't give because that is very, very, it's very important for them, this particular, money and wealth. So therefore, they say, oh, I don't want to lose my money. I want to make sure I get a lot of wealth so that I'm gonna give my family. But you've got enough to feed your family. But try to share with others. And also, importantly, is try to make sure that this doesn't overwhelm your life. Work, make sure doesn't overwhelm your life. But the shaitan comes and says, no, work more. Oh, there's an opportunity here. You can do this night shift. You can do that particular work. You can do this. You can buy shares. You can do all that. So you can get more and more money, right? So then you get occupied with money and your focus will be money. right? So that you can make sure that you get more money, you can do more things, you can give more to your children, etc., etc., right? So he occupies you, comes you from the back without you noticing. And sometimes when you think, you tell, okay, guys, listen, there is the shaitan here, he's saying get more money and things. You think, no, that's me. But the shaitan comes as a form of a thought, right? He whispers in your ear. He is a form of a thought. Says, oh, what about this? Make sure you get this higher raise. And if you don't get the raise, oh no, why didn't you get this raise? Try again. Continuously, making sure that you get more from this dunya. Of course, I'm not saying that you shouldn't work. We all should work. Please try to understand what I'm trying to say, but don't overdo it. Life isn't just about work. Life is about giving. Life is about caring. Life is about loving, right? So it isn't just about work. And I guess the pandemic has helped this to some extent, that some people have now got a bit more time with their family, thinking less about their work, less travel, etc. They finish on time, maybe, perhaps for some people. So the pandemic maybe is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although, of course, a lot of people have also lost their lives. Number 3, he says, so we've said, مَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ. So shaitan comes from the right. He attacks you from the right. And when he attacks you from the right, this is the direction of true understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say that you should be the people of the right. Ashabul Yameen, right? The people of the right. And this is really interesting, my dear brothers and sisters. What he will do, he will come and corrupt you through your religion. He will come and make doubts on you through confusion and doubt through the religion of Islam, and specifically through Shiism. And unfortunately, there are individuals out there whose shaitan has skewed their mind, and they are speakers perhaps, or they're so-called scholars, right, who come and they will make sure that they will skew your views of Islam, right? There are outliers out there. So we've got to make sure that we know who to listen to in terms of speakers. We know who to read, which books we should really read, right? There are the approved scholars. We've got the approved maraja that we should always go back to, etc. And they are approved scholars, but there are individuals out there who are not so-called approved, and so they are not people who are bringing a skewed version of our religion, and unfortunately, people are listening to them. People like to hear something new, and so therefore, it's they want to go against the status quo, whatever, and all these things. So therefore, there are people who will try to skew the religion. And unfortunately, if we dig deeper, even in our circles, there are certain hadiths, there are certain things that isn't really authentic. So people need to really be vigilant that this is, they investigate these particular hadiths, they make sure they know this makes rational sense. Does it really go with my intellect? And so if I was to take it. But so the shaitan comes and whispers and does things to the human being so that he creates this confusion within your own religion, which is the right. He comes from the right. And finally, he comes from the left. وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ. He comes from the left. So he will attack in the form of and the direction of sinning. We don't want to become the people of the left. We don't want to become the people of the left. And so he will make lust and desires overcome your judgments. When I am sitting down watching Netflix, if there is an indecent image, I'll continue watching that, right? Because the shaitan has whispered and said, come on, it's okay. And if there becomes an indecent image online, etc., okay, you're alone, it's okay. So he will make my sort of judgments skewed, and it will cloud my judgments, and so that I can sin, and this is his goal, so I can continuously sinning. And what about also about backbiting and about lying and about all these particular things that the shaitan will come and say, oh, come on, it's nice gossip, say this about this person, say this about this person. He's coming from the left, right? So so then I will say it, just so that he has clouded my judgment, and I will say it, and of course I will commit a sin. So these are the strategies of the shaitan, my dear brothers and sisters, and the end goal, the shaitan says, so that I can stop them from being grateful. So therefore, if we stop the shaitan from attacking us from the front, remember, bayna aydihim, make sure that the judgment is the judgment is not significant for us. From our back, when he makes us collect wealth, so we forget those who are in need, and occupies us in wealth. From the people of the right, he comes us from the right, skews our religion, and then and then he comes from the left, where he tries to make us cloud our judgments so that we can sin. If we stop all these from the strategies if we stop the shaitan from attacking us from all these directions, we can be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, being grateful to Allah will stop the shaitan from attacking us from these particular